It's your number one indie radio chick, Tonya B, and I want you to join me every Friday and Saturday, 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturday at noon Eastern Time for The Bird Wire. It is hands down, bar none, the undisputed home of the best new and classic indie music. I've got new indie tracks from every corner of the globe. R&B, Southern Soul, clean hip-hop, and even a splash of smooth jazz. So come on, get in, get on, and get heard. Come fly with your girl on The Bird Wire, right here on the Castropolis Podcast Network.
This is the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 167 of This is the G Podcast. Yes, Tommy B's in the building. I'm not solo, but I got a special guest coming up in a few minutes. And just want to let y'all know it is Academy Awards Sunday, but I definitely won't be talking about the Academy Awards. They screwed us over so many years. I'm not going there. Syracuse Mike's got news. It's amazing. He even mentioned in the news, not in this cast, that Jim Boeheim was fired from Syracuse, so he's not a very happy Orangeman. So we did get some news, though. That's cool. And by the way, Georgetown fired Patrick Ewing, so Ewing is out. Georgia Tech needs a new coach, and Nate McMillan is available, y'all. So just want to let y'all know. Nate, there you go, 3 jobs. There you go. Happy. Be happy. Also, happy spring forward, y'all. Daylight savings time. It's late for church day. I know a lot of y'all were napping church day, skip church, don't go to work day, whatever you want to do. It's spring forward. And a good friend of mine, man, we share the brotherhood of the turntable. He is in the building. One half of Atlanta's legendary Earwax Records, man. I'm going to spend all show with him. Hopefully he can hang out with me all show.
Oh, yeah.
You can hang? Okay, good. Earwax Records. Talib Shabazz is here. Y'all give it up for Talib in the building. Unlike some of these other folks, I say, "Hey, can you come on?" Well, I have constraints for third party. I'm like, I knew you were constraints. but hey, man, appreciate you, man. I'm gonna get that Atlanta perspective. You know, as we stare at hip hop at 50, man, I appreciate you coming on. Can you believe it, Talib, brother? I mean, we gray.
Look, I never this was gonna happen like this. You know,
who knew?
Man, it's funny because you think. I will say this. I think that the fact that we are part of the hip hop generation is what keeps us kind of youthful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was about being out. It was about having fun. It was about, just looking at life from a different perspective. So, that's the only thing that's keeping me going, bro, because these whiskers don't stop.
They don't stop. They push through, man. The Grecian formula, whatever you got, just gave up. Hands up. Yeah. hey, but Talib, y'all, and we were talking, man. I didn't know this because we were in the same record pool together. $1 million at one point. And but you moved here in '86. I'm a lifer. Yes. I've been here, for a while. When you moved here in '86, man, where'd you go to school?
I went to Northside High School.
Oh, you went where the fine women were.
Well, there was some stars. There was some stars at Northside, definitely. But Mays was Mays was always spectacular.
Yes.
But,
hey, let's stop and give it up for Mays. Mays is where the heartbreakers were.
Yeah, man. But Southwest DeKalb wasn't too bad either.
Yeah, let's give it up.
Yeah, Southwest DeKalb, yes. Had a couple friends that went there.
Good.
So but yeah, man, it was a crazy time. What I loved about it was the fact that in hindsight, I was not only able to see the beginning of hip hop from the New York standpoint, but I was also able to see, because my dad was in DC. Mm-hmm. So I was going back and forth between New York and DC. So I not only caught the beginning of the New York hip hop movement, or not necessarily the beginning, but the wave of it, and I was able to see the beginning of the go-go phase, being in DC, was, EU, Trouble Funk, and Chuck Brown, maybe, and they were always doing shows at the Armory. but it was still in the beginning days of that.
Yeah.
And then to move to Atlanta in '86 and see how the hip hop movement kind of started here,
Mm-hmm.
The youth movement was here.
Right.
I feel like I've got a very unique perspective on things that I would have only got from being here.
Good. And before we get deeper, man, because you moved here in '86, I was, I graduated high school '82, but '86 in college, and I was away for a while, and I came back, and I was asking you about the name Jurgen because all the Jurgen parties were going on, and for y'all, because it's interesting, Talib, because you don't see anything online. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. I got the wrong spelling. But let me ask you, for folks who say, damn, Jurgen, explain that Jurgen party. Was that going on when you were moving here? Yeah, I caught
the tail end, and that's the funny thing, because Atlanta is such a college town, there were a lot of changes. There was always a changing of the guard, especially when it came to who was running things around campus. You move away from campus. Now, the next wave comes in. So it's kind of like, for the Jurgen parties, I caught the tail end of it.
Yeah, but it was spectacular. Oh my God!
That's why I decided to never leave. Because graduating high school was one thing. It was like, wow, it was a mind-opening experience. But then, as starting college in '86, 87 to 80, 87 to 88 was my freshman year in school. So it's like, whoa. And then right after that, School Days came out, and it was the butt parties. So,
man,
where'd
you go to school? Did you go here? Were you here?
I started at DeVry, and then transferred over to Georgia State.
Okay, got you.
So I was at State from 90 and 91.
I got to ask you something, man, because I was doing right around that time, doing mobile stuff. Because you and I talked about the fact that Jurgen bought AEE, which if you're a DJ, Jurgen Jones was the guy we talked about who did all the parties on the AU campus. And he and Mark bought this DJ rental business.
Right. And that's what, So a lot of us would come up through Jurgen and Mark because we knew that they had the stuff.
They had the sound systems.
They had the system. So it was you got in with a couple of people, and then you get to Jurgen. And then you got your part. You got the whole everything that you need from whether you were doing Adams Park or whether you were doing Clark's Gym.
Yep. Because I was doing parties at the time, man, at Emory. I was doing some Emory campus parties. I know you remember this back in the day, right around late '80s. Emory was doing parties, which was kind of unusual because weren't many black people on the campus, right?
Right.
And they had this big fight between DeVry, the frats, and you remember? Do you remember? And I was DJing. Man. And I just remember the salt shakers started flying, the pepper shakers started flying, my equipment started flying. And when you mentioned DeVry, I said, damn, I bet he knows about it. But there were times, man, like you said, there were changing of the guards. Like growing up in Atlanta, we always had these incidents. Like people would remember the Kings Ridge, which was before your time. They used to do parties at this apartment complex called Kings Ridge. And there was a stabbing there that parties moved. Then people started doing, like AU Center and then Freaknik. I know you remember the Freaknik stuff that was, definitely going on. And then, of course, me doing the Emory parties, because after that, they didn't do any more parties on campus, not for the frats, not in that way. But there are always these incidents that happen at parties. And it's a totally different day today in terms of incidents. And we'll get into that a little bit later, man. But it's good to see you, brother. And
man, likewise,
you are definitely, we got a lot to talk about, man, because you're in that era. I call you you are the tribe era, the Tribe Called Quest. I am.
That's a good way of looking at it because, because that was the time. I started at Georgia State's radio station in August of '91. And, we had a 4-hour rap show that we did over there on Sunday nights that, the one time it did get rated on Arbitron, we had like a 27 share.
Yeah, it was amazing, man.
You know what I mean? The show was it was crazy. So that golden era, time, the Tribe De La, Native Tonguesy kind of, it was just special.
Yeah, and see, when you were doing Georgia State, I was doing V.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just getting the mix shows up on V, and we were hearing all that noise from like, damn, they doing, y'all never remember, like Brad Davison, who used to do Jive back in the day. Brad, and of course Parrish Johnson, who would always come. They would come to me and say, "Man, you need to be doing what Talib is doing, because y'all ain't getting it over here, man." Y'all ain't,
oh man!
Yeah, you were on the radar, man. You were on the radar. Because see, I came up in the era, and we're gonna go to the news and come back. But my era, like whereas you were that era, and I was blending into that era. I was the electro funk. I was the craft work. The Planet Rock. So you were probably like the 105, 108, 112. BPM. I was the 125, 130, the yeet.
Yes, exactly.
The Jermaine Dupri, 130.
That's what made Atlanta. I know we're gonna touch on it a little bit more, but that's what made Atlanta special. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what Atlanta's kind of sound, Atlanta's stamp on this thing was just that low end. They wanted that bass. It was all about that bass. So, if you being in at that time, that's what made Atlanta what it was. So when I came down, you know what I mean? It was like I got thrown right into that. Wow. And then, we kind of ushered in the next wave together. But that electro funk, that was all. That was all I heard when I came down.
That's the thing. That Miami bass. All that was, that it had to be 125, 130. You had the Phoenix Dance Club.
Oh boy.
VIP, that kind of thing. But let me ask you though, from a sound standpoint, because I had, of course, relatives who came down, moved from New York to Atlanta, and you were doing DJ, so you were into music. How did you? There were some brothers who couldn't handle the Atlanta vibe. When they first, how did you get here and thrive? Because a lot of how it was, man. A lot of cats came to Atlanta from New York, and man, this
it's whack. Yeah, I was the same way. Thomas. Because when I came from New York, when I left New York, I was 16. And I had I was fortunate enough to really not just be not only to spend in New York, but I was going to spots like the Latin Quarters. I was, any party of the park jams up in the Bronx, we would travel from Queens in order to go there. Right. So, I was out. I was seeing things, So when I came here, it was more just trying to be a continuation of that. And I was definitely the arrogant New Yorker. I was like these country boys.
I didn't want to say that, but
exactly. I was all of that. But what happened was with me is I spent 1 year down here straight. I did not return to New York for holidays, excuse me, or anything like that. Once I moved here in July of '86, I was here. And rode it out that full year. So in Atlanta at that time, it was the high right, low lefts, haircuts. The girls were rocking the isometrics and stuff, it was duck heads and Sebagos and Genera clothes, you know what I mean? So fashion was a certain way. And I'm like, this is all whack. Nobody in New York would ever do this and blah, blah, blah. And when I went back to New York in July of '87, everything that I said was country. and that was whack, and they would never do it in New York. They were doing in New York.
Wow.
And they were acting like they invented it. So I was like, at that point, I realized that it really, Eric B. Rakim had already come out with the line, "It ain't where you're from, it's where you're at." And that was never more true at that point for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of realized, okay. Plus, listen, I'm a musician. My mom was a dancer. My dad is a percussionist, African percussionist. Music has always been around me. So it's not a problem for me to just jump in for in any kind of music and thrive. It's just, I felt like after that first year, I was way more accepting of what Atlanta had to offer, as opposed to me just trying to be the arrogant one and bring down what I felt Atlanta needed. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Let's do this. Let's go ahead. We'll do news with Mike, and then we'll come back on the other side. Man, we got a lot to talk about. I got some definitely questions, man, that I have not asked you. Because we damn near did the show before the show when I talked to you this week. I'm like, save some for the podcast, man. Right, definitely. All right, let's go ahead and do news with Syracuse Mike. We'll come right back. Here we go.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the Week in News with Syracuse Mike.
Police are putting plans in place to try to prevent more violent protests at the construction site for Atlanta's new public safety training facility. Protesters have dubbed it Cop City. They don't want it built. Around 30 were arrested during the most recent protests. Felony state domestic terrorism charges have been filed against 23 individuals for allegedly hurling rocks, bricks, fireworks, and Molotov cocktails at police officers on Sunday.
This wasn't about a public safety training center. This was about anarchy, and this was about the attempt to destabilize.
That's Police Chief Darren Shearbaum.
During that attack on the officers, pieces of equipment and other items that were at the location for the construction of the public safety training center were damaged.
Sources tell us only 2 of those arrested are from Georgia. The Georgia Senate put an end to the latest effort to legalize sports betting in the state. Senate Bill 140 called for an amendment to the Georgia state constitution, which would have given Georgia voters the opportunity to approve a ballot referendum. But it's dead for now because there were not enough votes in the state Senate. Under the current legislation, 50% of the money would have funded education scholarships for certain students. 25% would go to fund rural health care, mental health, and economic development initiatives. And the rest would go to other programs. 2 Americans kidnapped in Mexico are alive, and 2, unfortunately, are dead. The 2 that made it out alive are back in the U.S., along with the bodies of the 2 that were killed. The White House says they have reached out to the relatives of the survivors. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
I can confirm that U.S. officials are in touch with the families of the individuals.
One of the victims was injured, and a person who was found watching over them was reported to be in custody. The 2 survivors have been identified as Latavia McGee and Eric Williams. Shaid Woodard and Zindell Brown were found dead. According to several reports, the group traveled to Mexico for cosmetic surgery. That's not unusual for people seeking procedures at a lower cost. Mexican authorities now think the kidnappers may have mistaken the Americans for rival human traffickers. All of this happened in Mexico, not far from Brownsville, Texas, just across the Rio Grande. More than a dozen officers have been charged in connection to the January death of Tyrie Nichols. A 7th officer has also been fired. About 20 additional hours of police video and audio will be released today, according to the city of Memphis. In sports, former Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley has been reinstated by the NFL after being suspended for gambling. He's now with Jacksonville, and Atlanta has decided not to pursue QB Lamar Jackson. The Justice Department has concluded that the Louisville Metro Police Department engaged in a pattern of using excessive force after a nearly 2-year review following the killing of Breonna Taylor. Attorney General Merrick Garland.
The report finds that LMPD uses excessive force, conducts searches based on invalid warrants, unlawfully executes warrants without knocking.
In addition to excessive force, the review found that officers use unjustified neck restraints, police dogs, and tasers. Officers are accused of routinely using racial slurs about and against black citizens, calling them monkeys, animal, and boy in some cases. There was also this quote from the report. For years, LMPD has practiced an aggressive style of policing that it deploys selectively, especially against black people, but also against vulnerable people throughout the city. By the way, the police department is 81% white. According to the DOJ, the city of Louisville has agreed to resolve the constitutional violations it found. Senate Republicans are pushing back on Fox News host Tucker Carlson, who was given access to around 41,000 hours of police and surveillance footage from the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. He's called the events mostly peaceful and said a small percentage of the rioters committed vandalism, referring to them as orderly and meek. GOP Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina called Carlson's claims BS. And by the way, that's our censored quote.
Appreciate it, Mike. And, by the way, we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks an attorney prosecutor coming in to kind of talk about what's going on with this whole Trump thing, give us some insight, as well as a journalist to talk about Fox News. And I'm here to tell you, I have my thoughts, but I'm not going to get into it on this show. I'm going to keep it happy. I want to have one show where my blood pressure can remain stable. So this will be it. But just a tragic and cautionary tale, man, to those who go to Mexico for these procedures, y'all. Y'all need to really pay attention and be careful, man, because, I saw Man on Fire with Denzel, and that tells me enough about the kind of kidnapping that goes on. So just, cautionary tale. Also, these job numbers, even though it was a great week, this bank failure with Silicon Valley is definitely something we need to be watching. The tech companies are shook. A lot of folks aren't saying things. All of a sudden, they've disappeared. Wells Fargo, out of the blues, having technical errors where people's checks are being held. So we need to really view this and determine where it's going in terms of our economy. So the feds, I know, are going to continue to raise interest rates because of inflation, but pay attention, close attention. Also, headlines on Memphis and Louisville confirming that the police aren't policing themselves well.
Is that a surprise?
Really?
Oh, really? I could never imagine.
So, I just don't, but I'm going to leave it at that. Anyway, Mayor Garland, God bless you, brother. That's all I got to say. But let me say this, man. Daryl, on a positive note, man, Daryl Jazz Smith, Talib Shabazz, 1992, Midtown, created a haven, man, for fans of hip hop and house and just hard to find music. The legendary Earwax Records, man, unfortunately came. Well, y'all had a great run, ended in 2008. 15 years. And the goal was to provide music that was hard to find, and they did that. Earwax is credited to be the first retailer to carry an extensive selection of hip hop and rap. And definitely house as well. And Earwax was also a gathering place for the public, DJs, artists, producers, promoters. They hosted media events, live performances, listening sessions. And if you've heard the names, just some of the names, like DJ Clever, DJ Toomp, Dallas Austin, Jermaine Dupri, Organized Noise Productions, so many more I could go into. You've heard this brother's name, Talib Shabazz. Talib, what's up, man? The one and only.
Brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. It's so good to be here with you too, Thomas. It's funny. It's like, even when I was getting started with the promotions and stuff like that, talking to you at V, you were always a very, very real, straight shooter type. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when it came to how your job was, I love the fact that you were not going to necessarily jeopardize your job just for the sake of what an artist or, a promotions person, was coming to you with. But you know what, Talib? A lot of people don't understand the circumstances behind all that. And that's another podcast. Okay. Because when I took over, the fire was real. That's all I got to say. FBI. There were a lot of things going on that a lot of folks didn't know about. And, but I appreciate that, man. Definitely. Appreciate the kind words. But brother, the fire was real. It was a lot of fun though, man. I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of really good people, a lot of crazy people. A lot of crazy. had to that's for sure.
Call security, but it was all good, man. Even I remember there was a group of brothers. I forgot the house, man. They have this thing every Monday. And I think Al Burrows was involved. Al was involved in it, and some other, other musicians.
Yeah, the music business. Oh my gosh, what was it called? Oh man, yes. When
But you remember they would invite me out. I don't know if it was like the first Monday, and I'd always go out, and it was a pleasure, man, to just talk to them because they didn't have many, outlets. It wasn't like today where we had digital. So, it was always like just connecting with people and letting them know the process so that they could, get involved with the process and get stuff going. But man, we talked so much, man. And again, because I had to stop you, man, said, let's hold it for the podcast. But I asked you one big question, man, about how do you describe Atlanta's music scene? And you said it's like water. And I said, yo, what do you mean? Let's stop it right there. What did you mean by that? Okay. You said it's like water.
Yeah, it's when people ask me about Atlanta, I have two different comparisons. The first one is water, because water is formless. Water basically takes the shape of whatever vessel it's put in. So if you have, a water bottle, water takes the shape of the bottle. It's kind of like that with Atlanta, because Atlanta, when New York was the dominant sound, you saw people in Atlanta kind of developing a New York vibe. When LA, started to take hold, 87, 88, people started sounding like Easy and NWA and these types of cats. Atlanta's always had, a big Miami influence with Uncle Luke and Uncle Al and, those Jamponi, those kinds of guys, those cassettes, the Jamponi cassettes were floating around Atlanta almost as long as the J-Team was. So, it's Atlanta, like I said, was kind of for a while there, Atlanta's overall sound was formless. The one thing that kind of connected Atlanta's sound in all these different forms was the fact that it was dropping. You had to have that bass, that low. It was all about that low end. So that's how guys like Tila Rock, took hold, were able to take hold in Atlanta, because Mantronic's production was all about the 808.
Yes. Yeah.
So so in that sense, it is like, I kind of compare it to water. The second way it's kind of compared to water is because of the waves that happen in Atlanta. You'll find that, just like, the tide, there are ebbs and flows in the sound and the way that people respond to music in Atlanta. So, as one style is kind of ebbing away, another style is coming in.
Yes.
And, and you kind of have to ride that new wave. So, or you're going to get left behind. So, and I think that's because, Atlanta is predominantly, it's a heavy transient town.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a lot of people, although there are a lot of people who were born and raised here and still live here and do things here. The fact that, Atlanta has now become this international city after the Olympics, and, then, Freaknik did it for the Black folks. And, you look around Atlanta now and you'll see, that the Indonesian, Pakistani people have their own community, Brazilian people have their own community in Atlanta. So now you see all these little pockets really popping up again. And again, it's kind of like, it's an ebb and flow, Yeah. The second way I kind of compare Atlanta musically is it's like a woman who's having a lot of sex. There's a lot of people that are interacting.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot of people that are interacting with Atlanta musically.
Yeah.
And culturally. But it doesn't, she's not, she's probably, she's had a great time with it. But, it's like a woman that she still hasn't really had that orgasm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because I still think it's, even though a lot of attention is on Atlanta at this particular time, it's still not enough to really stimulate what Atlanta really has to offer.
And so, you know what? It's interesting you say that, man, because we were also talking about who call themselves from Atlanta, because we were doing, again, you were doing your thing on the independent side, And we were doing, the big broadcast radio thing on my side. And you had people like who had been here, like Peebo, Bryson had been here. You had Isaac Hayes who had been here for a while, Gladys. And the tide was changing to where when you got here, Keith Sweat had moved to Alpharetta, right? And then you had LA and Babyface moving here.
Correct.
Bobby Brown, all these cats. So when we would go on, on the radio, man, and the jocks would say, Atlanta's own, man, we get, the hotline, Peebo.
Yes, I remember hearing Peebo go off.
Peebo went off. Like, how dare y'all call
Hey,
he ain't from here, Babyface from Indianapolis. He ain't from,
Right.
So my point, you're absolutely right, man. There was this, you had and now Atlanta is more transient than it is native. The transients have pretty much taken over. We still have natives here, but yeah, it's a transient city. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
but it's kind of a layered thing too.
Yeah.
Because the folks who are really from Atlanta, and their peoples are here.
Mm-hmm.
They're on a different vibration altogether.
Yeah.
So you could be from New York. You've been here for 3 years, and you could say, I don't think I've ever met anybody from Atlanta, because to really get to Atlanta, you gotta change your vibration.
Yeah.
If you're just gonna vibrate, and I'm not saying one is a higher or lower thing, in terms of like better or not better, but we look at frequencies. There's somebody's gonna vibrate at 400 megahertz, and then somebody else is gonna vibrate at 500 megahertz.
Yeah.
But if you're not taking the time to really discover what Atlanta has to offer, then you can live your life and never really know anybody from here.
Yeah.
Unless they're starting to travel in those circles.
Yeah.
When I got here, it wasn't like that. You did what Atlanta did.
Yeah.
And if Atlanta was going to the teen clubs, graffitis and
sharing showcase.
Exactly. That's what you were doing.
Yeah.
We didn't really have these options. We were trying to create these options just to have a little semblance of home. But, and that's kind of like what Earwax was.
Yeah.
Earwax it wasn't like we were like, we're going to do a New York style store.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, this is who we are. This is what we like. We're going to stock what we like, and we're going to learn everything else. And that's the reason why I think that Earwax got a lot of the respect that it did too, because our personal tastes weren't necessarily involved in the decisions we were making for the store. We were making decisions for the store for the betterment of our customers to keep customers coming back. So it also taught me about a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't have gotten turned on to.
Yeah. Who are some of the artists, man? I mentioned a few of the DJs. When you think back early on into, I guess, heading toward 2008, who were some of the artists who you remember the most, who impacted what you guys were doing, and vice versa, because you helped them. So who comes to mind?
Well, I think it's funny. David Banner would probably be one of the best examples of what really happens when you've got a record working with DJs before it goes to radio.
Yeah.
Because the Like a Pimp song that he had with Little Flip was strictly a 12-inch. There were no CD singles. There were no cassette singles of this thing. He had some CDs pressed up, but that was a vinyl record that I've gone through at least 250, 300 copies of that 12-inch.
Wow.
Gucci Mane is another one that was like that. When Icy came out, man, I went personally to Fat Cat Records and bought every 12-inch that they had to make sure that when DJs came into Earwax, we had that record in stock, because it was just one of those records that all the jocks had to have. And, not saying that it wasn't really my cup of tea musically.
Yeah.
I love the record, actually. But it was, when people thought Earwax, they would kind of at first think, oh, this is a New York thing. and then they come in and they realize that, excuse me,
that's cool.
They come in that they realize that we're pretty much universal.
Yeah.
We're not that arrogant New Yorker at that point.
Let me tell you, man, before, I grew up on the SWAT, in the SWATs or close, East Point, right. That area, Greenbrier Mall.
Okay.
So my record store, before you guys opened, was Peppermint. I don't know if you remember,
right.
Like Peppermint's in the mall.
That was at the mall.
And then, they moved across the street. But Peppermint's was, the big influence and where we got most of our 12 inches, 12-inch records if you weren't in a pool, man. But DJ-wise, man, I remember because, again, I was in radio doing the thing here. So we had, Jelly, we found Jelly. Jelly was doing his thing, I think, at Little 5 Points at one point, selling tapes, selling mixtapes.
Yeah.
You
at the 5 Points Flea Market.
Yep.
That was 5 Points Flea Market.
At the 5 Points Flea Market. You had Nabs, Nabs was out doing his, Nabs was winning, Techniques DJ of the Year award.
Exactly. Doing battles and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, then you had, probably the older cats who were legends like Daz. I don't know if you remember DJ Daz Wright, who was at the Phoenix, man.
Man, Daz and Smash were probably the best two-man team we've ever had in the nightclub in Atlanta.
Rest in peace, man. Daz
and Smash on the Friday night. Come on, man. There was nothing better. That white boy was crazy.
I did not know.
Then,
yeah. Let me tell you, man, I went to because, I used to go, I was just graduating or, basically they'd have, either you were it was 18 and up. So, on those nights, man, and we go there, we just be waiting for the bus from Spelman to get there pretty much. and then all the brothers would leave when they say, everyone to the bus from the bus to Spelman is leaving. All the brothers be leaving. But my point is, it's like you had Daz. I mean, it's crazy how, Daz was probably, he was doing Dixie Dance Kings, which was a different pool, but still the amount of records he crossed over because of his style. I mean, and I don't want to get into it technically, but it was just crazy. You'd be hearing like the Haunted House of Rock track, and then here comes Safety Dance, and he'd be mixing, Men Without Hats. So, and we on the floor packed, that's the first place I really heard Yazoo Situation.
Situation.
In the mix. So man, Daz Wright and Smash. What other cats? I mean, I mentioned Reggie Reg was at VIP, but what other cats were doing it, man, and kind of interacting with you?
Oh man,
anybody?
Really, I'm telling you, Thomas, at one time, man, we had everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If we had started, if we could have taken Earwax's customer base and started a record pool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would have been, there would have been no other record pools because it was that we were, you know how it goes in a pool, you don't get everything.
Yeah, so true.
There are still certain joints that you had to buy.
Yeah.
And, even, or had to rebuy because your copy got scratched.
Yeah.
So we had everybody, man. What happened was, and it's funny because the DJ started really coming to us, the working DJs.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody like a DJ Scobie.
Yep.
Who was over at,
definitely.
Mr. V's.
Scobie was my guy. Yeah.
There were, DJ Herb, DJ, everybody, man. It's like, I can see faces, even guys who were from out of town. We had a guy named DJ Cruz who would call in every week from Tennessee.
He
lived in Clarksville, and we would mail him, the latest releases. DJ Sterl, another dude from Tennessee, from Nashville. We had cats from Miami who would call in and start ordering records. All the guys from here, DJ JC, Applejack, anybody that was coming through the RES thing, Tommy Fix, the guy from V.
Definitely Tommy Fix. Yep, Mike.
DJ Chip, Big Daddy, Cowboy. It was, all of these guys, even if they were, on the radio and getting service, would still come through. And that's what kind of made Earwax what it was in terms of the camaraderie. Because it was not just, it became like a barbershop.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just a place to come and get some music. That was the place where you got news and information.
Yeah.
You know, and seeing how other DJs were responding to records. And I can't tell you, I mean, you know, like any other time, how many times have you gone into a store, a record store, heard somebody asking about something specific, they played it, and now you're buying it as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was that kind of, network. You know what I mean? That's the best way I can really put it. Earwax was a network.
And you know, that's true because, you know, not only did we listen or kind of eavesdrop on the conversation that a guy was having about, hey, I'm looking for this record, blah, blah, blah. We go to the clubs and look over in the booth. That's why a lot of guys started putting white labels on some of their vinyl that they didn't want to disclose, you know, because we'd be looking and listening and then going to the stores running to grab it. So, it wasn't like Discovery now is YouTube, or Discovery is TikTok, or Discovery is digital.
Exactly.
And speaking of digital, man, because you know, moving forward, I know you guys shut down around 2008. How much? And you know, I saw a comment. I was talking to somebody, and they said, "Well, you know, you should be glad vinyl's gone. You know, you don't have to carry your crates anymore because the crates were killing." But I will tell you, man, the feel of vinyl, you know, as a DJ is still incredible. The sound of it versus an MP3 is still, you know, can't compare when you hear it. But how did you guys compete? Because vinyl's starting to make a comeback now. How did you compete then with digital when it started really hitting hard?
Well, you know, I have to say that the way we kind of were able to ride the line for a long time was thanks to two DJs in particular. One was a guy by the name of DJ Random, who was one of our in-house guys. He worked for the store, and DJ DC from Tag Team. They were putting out mixtapes that basically played the entire record and kind of just blended towards the end.
Wow.
So we were able to have a balance. So if there was something that I couldn't get on vinyl through either direct service from the manufacturer or white labels, we did have a lot of white labels, and that's how we started competing at first. But once the digital revolution really started coming in, what helped us out was the fact that DC and Random were basically breaking all of these new acts and new songs on these mixtapes.
Wow.
You know, and we were able to still, so the guys who were hybrids like me, you know, were able to, and this was like, this was kind of right at the time where Atlanta was going through the snap music phase.
Okay.
You know, so your D Pharrells, the whole Bankhead, you know, Shorty Low, Pool Palace, you know, when that wave really started coming into Atlanta, that's when you noticed that all of these records weren't quite making it to 12-inch.
Yeah.
You know,
I got
so a lot of times cats were on the hybrid. You know, I had a CD, a Vestax CD turntable that I could actually connect to my turntable, and I could manipulate it like vinyl.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of people were doing that, you know, and then once really 2008, we could have stayed open, but it was like, are we going to do this? And what if, you know, of course, nobody has a time machine. Nobody's got the crystal ball. If we had known that, you know, really all we would have had to do was wait 10 years and vinyl would have had the great resurgence that it did, you know, we probably could have held on to some more stuff. We probably could have stuck it out a little longer.
Yeah.
But it's just that, you know, at that time for who we were really catering to, I'll tell you, CD turntables didn't really affect our bottom line like Serato did.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, once Serato hit and Jazzy Jeff endorsed it.
Whew. Lord. and you know, for those who aren't DJs, I mean, Serato is a software that.
Right. Serato's a DJ software that allows you to, you know, it's a file manager. So all of your files are kept with the computer, And now you can use, turntables or CDs or controllers in order to play directly from your computer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's like you said, man, but the sound is just, it ain't the same.
No. No. MP3 versus vinyl. I ask anybody, man, compare the two.
Yeah.
And the warmth of the vinyl. The only thing, man, is that damn taking crates to a party.
But that's that.
Unless you worked if you worked in a club, you were cool.
Right, but you could leave them.
But if you had to take them, God bless you. Hey man, let's do this real quick. We normally do around this time. We do tea, so for our podcasters, I just want to do some quick entertainment news list. And hang with me, man. I want to get your thoughts on some of this stuff.
I'm here.
So let me go ahead and do this.
Now then, children, it's time for tea.
It's tea time, y'all. Sipping the tea with Tonya B.
The Tonya B's off this week, but we got to do this, and Tonya B's traveling. Still a lot of blowback, man, from the Chris Rock Netflix special. And you know what's up, man? The grown women are pissed. I don't know. Did you see it? I did.
I actually watched it.
The comments he made about dating younger women versus older women seems to be that sensitive point to where, women, and of course, some of the verbal attacks and calling Jada out her name. But the black women reacted more to him saying what he said about older versus younger. You got any thoughts on that, man? That's what that's what I'm getting. Hearing. Bold enough. You ain't got to come back, but go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, no, the thing is that I think that, in our culture, we are really experiencing an ageism, not just from hip hop. There's definitely ageism in hip hop, but I think it's really becoming a lot more prevalent in the world as a whole, or in our culture as a whole. And I think it's unfortunate. I understand where people are going with it, and it does make more sense to stay within your age range sometimes.
Yeah.
But, love is, we can't really help who we love.
Yeah.
My thing is like, man, just don't be so close to home. You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole world out there, man. You got to expand your horizons a little bit.
He was hard, man. It was definitely, and there's some women damn near to tears on TikTok and Instagram, making their statements. So, we'll see how that turns out. I mean, I'd mentioned this last week on the podcast. It's not over. And I had hoped
for a while.
Yeah, I had hoped that they had buried the hatchet, but nah, it ain't over. There's more to come. I can see the red table talk coming soon, so it's coming.
I thought that comment was crazy, though. He was like, so what do you think?
It's coming, man. It's coming soon. Tyler Perry, Byron Allen, man, apparently in a bidding war for ownership of BET. And I don't know, man. A lot of folks, and I'm one of them, man. I hope that maybe they could develop some kind of partnership. Because like BET or not, BET is a curated. It's our culture. All that going back to Donnie Simpson. Video Soul and all that, man, is part of culture, Black culture. So I'm glad to see it go, come from the corporate world into the hands of Black ownership again. I just hope, it doesn't turn into a war to where, the culture gets damaged by these two brothers. Now, I think, Tyler and Byron aren't going to get, Byron's not that kind of cat, nor is Tyler.
No.
So but I, go ahead, man.
No, I was just saying, man, really, I love Byron Allen. I love the way that he's just kind of quietly been accumulating. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I really have to take my hat off to him.
Yeah.
The Tyler Perry thing, I'm just like, I would like to see something that's a little more mentally challenging than what I've been seeing from Tyler.
Definitely not just written, produced, and directed by,
Right. But, but I mean, honestly, either way, it's good for the culture.
Yeah.
Because look, this is an institution that does need to be out of the controlling hands that it's in now, at least from, I mean, not totally, Viacom Paramount is always going to be a part of it because it's their thing. But at the same time, for us to be able to still have an injection of direction, is a good thing for us.
Yeah, I agree. And Tiger Woods, man, is about to give another white woman a lot of money. I guess apparently he's being sued. But now this is a trip. Listening to the story, I don't really follow Tiger. Tiger lost me a while back. I'm happy to see a black golfer. But yeah, the Cablinasian thing kind of, didn't sit well with me.
Whatever.
And, but he invited the lady, like, hey, come on, let's do this trip. You're going to do a trip, pack your bags, come on. And when she left the house, hey, come to this meeting, they took her keys.
Took her keys?
Took her keys.
Took her to the airport without a ticket.
Said, don't go back. You're done. So it was kind of shady. But she had an NDA, and now she wants the NDA dissolved, and she wants $30 million for damages. And this is the house that Tiger lives in, as well as his kids. So we'll see how it goes. But Tiger needs to leave the Huddle House and Waffle House girls alone, man.
Please.
Yeah.
And that's the real of it. I mean, even we forget that because people have money, that we think that they don't. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have class.
Yeah.
From what I heard in the news story, this is not the first time Tiger has tried to weasel out of just saying to a chick, "Hey, I'm not interested." You know what I mean? Like, yo, beat it. You know what I mean? Like, come on, you're Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
You can't tell a chick
hey, we're going on a cruise. Come on, baby, come on.
Right.
Hey, let's come to the conference room on the cruise. We got something to tell you. Oh, we got your keys.
Right.
What kind of?
Right. That is so weak.
Damn.
I'm just like, yo, bro, come on, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
There needs to be some balls.
Yeah, so true. And man, and I hope this doesn't go down, but the crew apparently for SNL, the tech crew, you deal with a lot of technical.
Oh yeah.
It's part of what you do now. Saturday Night Live, apparently they're talking about going on strike. So we'll keep an ear out. That's big news if the Saturday Night Live crew decides they want to go on strike. So we'll keep an eye on that. And apparently Lady Gaga, this is just announced that she's going to actually perform at the Oscars as we tape this Oscar Sunday. So it's going to be her and Rihanna, not together, but they'll be doing separate songs. At one point, she said she was not going to do it. So we'll see how it goes. And in Rochester, man, there's a third victim now who's died from the GLOrilla concert Stampede.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 35-year-old.
Stampede.
Aisha Stevens. And again, this was apparently it happened at the end of the concert. Folks were exiting. There are rumors about gunfire and so on and so forth. So, it's a bad situation, man. And we've been as DJs, we've all been just that close, where, somebody, I remember somebody getting stabbed and splattering on my slip pads. And, or, I talked about the thing at Emory where I had damaged equipment. You got to really shut it down and slow it down. Sometimes you got to do that. We'll talk, man. But one of the things I want to ask you, music today versus, you talk about 86 when you came here past, probably the time that we were doing our thing. As full-fledged DJs, and now. And I don't want to sound like my parents when I talk about a lot of the stuff that's going on, because I want to be open-minded. Hell, because I grew up on Prince. And somebody mentioned, I don't know if you meant Tipper Gore putting labels on Prince albums, or just, that's what started the whole labeling, on albums was Prince. So, You think music right now is in control, man? Do you think I sent you the article? Jadakiss had mentioned that the label should be responsible for lyrics, for a lot of the violent lyrics, man. What are your thoughts?
You know, as much as I would love to say that, yeah, I mean, come on, man. Somebody has to be a grown up out here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody can't just say, "Oh, I'm hands off this thing," and hey, man, it's just that's what they did, and that's the way I want it. No, if your half of your roster is getting arrested, especially getting arrested around the time that royalty payments are due. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. What's really going on here? Is it really? So I agree with Jadakiss. I think that when you got, okay, so I used to say no. Honestly, I used to say that, people should have the right to put out whatever they want to put out, no matter how crazy or insane it might be or how off the beaten path it is. And it's up to us to take care of our home and to let people know what is this, how are we going to distinguish between these? Mm-hmm. I've done the same thing with my boys. It's like, yeah, I hear them saying something stupid. Someone says so is sexing. I'm like, okay, let's stop. The word is not sexing. It's having sex. And trust me, 2 8-year-olds are not sexing in the closet at school. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. They might be humping. Yeah. But again, it's the deprogramming that parents have to do so that the child is a little bit more discerning. We know and understand that now there is very little balance in the music in terms of conscious thought versus, lower nature. And there are people, it's not just the artists who are perpetuating this. It is the record labels that are perpetuating it because that's what they're signing under the guise of, hey, man, this is what's popular. If you want me, I want to make money. I'm investing my money, so I'm going to invest my money in what's popular. Yeah. I get that. But at the same time, look, okay, well, if you're an artist, you want to sign the popular artist gets in trouble for what they're doing, then yeah, there needs to be some kind of responsibility on the side of the label. I think what's going on now is there is very little corporate checks and balances. Yeah. I agree. Very little. We as a general public don't necessarily have the checks and balances that we need on these corporations. And these corporations are basically doing whatever they want to do because at the end of the day, they have a responsibility to shareholders to return a profit. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I'm not saying that we need regulations, but yeah, there has to be some kind of, without really infringing on the capitalist side of this, there has to be a way that we can still be exercise a little more heart, a little more thought. Yeah,
a little bit more compassion, man. If anything, exactly. Because when we look at, like right now, as we tape the show, the YSL case is going on, Young Thug. Right. How do you think the Young Thug case is going to impact Atlanta if Thug goes down? How do you think it's going to impact the music scene?
Well, here's the thing. Fonnie Willis is the attorney. The Attorney General of Atlanta has basically declared wars on gangs. I find it kind of crazy that the first gang she goes after is a gang that was started around music affiliation. Yeah. When we've had Crips and Bloods in Atlanta for, you know what I mean?
It's been going on for a long time.
You're not going after the Crips and the Bloods. You're not going after Gangsta Disciples. You're not going after these name brand gangs. You're going after YSL, a couple of rappers who, have now, gotten a little too big for their britches. you know, and they're thinking that they have certain liberties that they don't necessarily have.
Yeah.
You know, I understand why, because if you start to take care of, you know, these little guys, these upstarts, you know, you might have a better chance to attack some of the more established. But, you know, at the same time, you know, these guys are doing it to themselves, man. You know, like, you can't pass a Percocet pill in open court and think that that's not going to affect how people are looking at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So true.
Exactly. Like
got
what
the
are we
amen
talking
corner back
about
there,
here?
like, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Somebody's somebody's mother is being contraband.
Yeah.
Come on, man. There, you know, there's got to be. I think so. So to answer your question specifically, I think if this case goes bad for, you know,
for Thug and YSL,
then it's going to start a sweep type of effect around all of these little, you know, the upstarts are going to get out of the way first, and then they'll probably really try and go after the more established.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not going to be good for the scene because these guys, it's like, okay, I don't know if you remember the Fred Tokar's case.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I remember how it shut the clubs down for a long time.
Exactly.
Because you had the guy James Mason who was involved in it. He owned all the clubs. So when Mason went down, the clubs went down. Yeah.
And it took, I mean, you know, it didn't necessarily affect the outskirts. You know, Bigelow's was still, you know, you wasn't messing with Bigelow's on Gresham Road, but in terms of the downtown scene,
it was a ghost town, dude.
It was literally Buckhead. That's how things kind of started trickling back into Buckhead a little bit, and then they were like, "No, we're not doing that over here." So, you know, it's gonna. I couldn't say how it's going to affect the Atlanta scene. What I can definitely say is it's not going to be good. It's going to be, you know, whatever happens, it's going to be a little more time to recover this time around.
Well, let me ask you, man, just from a sound standpoint, you know, the Atlanta sound has been around for a minute. When you look at Future, I don't want to, you know, I think trap gets overused because music's kind of, I guess, evolving out of that. But do you think it's time for a new, not necessarily a new sound? I mean, do you see? Okay, we talked about past, kind of going into the present. What's the future?
You know, I think I would love to say that I don't necessarily. Okay, let me back this up just a second. I don't think that the overall sound of the music right now is a problem.
Okay.
Even though it does not really lend to man, woman dancing on the floor.
Right. It is not a danceable sound.
It's not a danceable sound.
Because house music is still underground.
Yes. Right. You know, exactly.
As is anything over 100 beats. I'm just joking. Right. Anything over 105 beats.
It's non-existent right now, you know, in the popular Black music. So what I would love to see, I don't necessarily know how it's going to happen, but at some point, somebody is going to be like, hey, man, you know what? I'm really tired of this overall theme. And I think that what we would see first is kind of like a Dead Prez, bigger than hip hop kind of song. Sound.
Okay.
Where the sound is still kind of bouncy and in that groove, but you know there's being more added to the level of thought that goes into this.
Yeah.
I mean that's what I would love to see happening.
Well, let me say this. I'm gonna say this because you've done promotions before, and I can say this to you. What I've found kind of obvious to me is a lot of the pop stations. You remember at one point you had the Juicy J, you had that whole sound was dominant on pop.
Yeah.
Now you can't even find, when what's his name went crazy and Lil Baby.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. When DaBaby did what he did and got his music pulled, you may have still Drake. I think Drake is still popular on pop, top 40.
Right.
But after that, a lot of the rappers who are kind of DaBaby-like, you don't see them getting wide success outside of hip hop radio. And that's always a sign to me that the overall culture might be moving away. And then you start to see stuff like, what's his name? The white dude with the, you had Post Malone. Who's the new Post Malone? Harlow.
Jack Harlow.
Jack Harlow. When you start to see Jack Harlow's and BTS's started getting more Grammys and really you don't see the hip hop artists on the Grammys anymore. That says to me that there's people are looking at some of maybe the shenanigans that are happening and saying, look, hey, I'm pulling away. So, I hear what you're saying.
And you know what's funny too?
What's that?
Even to piggyback on that, if you look at the way, like, if you go to a party right now, the music, when DJs start to switch the music now into faster tempos, away from the Jeezy, T.I., Lil Baby, Lil Durk type of overall bounce, they're going to Afrobeat.
Yeah, Afrobeat is big.
Afrobeat is now taking over that 92 beats per minute to maybe 105.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, and people love Afrobeat right now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, so if it's popular enough for Americans to listen to it, a sound that's coming from, 8,000 miles away, then what makes people think that same sound tempo wise would not work right now for American artists?
Yeah, so true.
Why are we pigeonholing ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that, as the TikTok revolution starts to happen a little bit more and gaining even more traction into what the masses are listening to, or, how music is being introduced, I still think that I think that one of the things for the future is for the genres really to come ripping down. It's not going to be so much of this is a rap thing, this is a so-and-so thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more melding of styles and of genres.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Yeah, y'all, we are talking to the legendary Earwax. I don't know, you were DJ, owner, Talib Shabazz,
cleaning toilets.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. And again, it was open from 92. And actually, what are we looking at in terms of?
Well, actually, 93.
Yeah, 93.
We opened Jack. Okay. We opened Jack the Rapper Week in 93.
Yeah, so we're looking at it's 30 years. This is the 30th anniversary.
30th anniversary this year.
Yeah, and the 15th anniversary of the 2008. So you got one celebration.
Right.
It's still a celebration, you just decide. But hey, man, Talib, man, thank you so much, bro. How do people connect? Do you care? Do you even want them to connect with you? You kind of like,
oh yeah. Because I'm still down. I got a couple things that are going on right now. I'm actually doing the podcast today from the from recording studio Unit C8.
Yeah,
we're down here in College Park. It's the home of the vintage tunes. My man DJ Wiz is doing a lot of remix projects and stuff.
Nice.
So we got that coming. We got bigger things happening with that this year. In terms of getting in touch with me, on Twitter, it's El Shabazz. Like Spanish, the Shabazz, E-L, and my last name. On Instagram, it's El Shabazz 7. And on Facebook, Talib Shabazz, DJ Talib Shabazz.
Yeah.
And they can find me everywhere.
Good stuff, man. I got to make sure I have that on the notes. If you're listening,
okay,
and listening live, I'll have that on the podcast notes as well. Hey, just a couple of things before we go. I just got to do these leftovers before. Don't go anywhere. But no,
I'm good.
Man, our collective hearts, man, go out to the family of the Clark AU student, Jatan Sterling, who was murdered in the parking lot over at the CAU Catholic Center on February 28th. Man, they had the prayer walk this week for him. I think, and another prayer walk that occurred. Actually, the students were off, for just mental healing over at Clark AU. And the prayer walk was happening in Douglasville. Man, this is crazy for the two teens who were killed at the Sweet 16 party just a week ago. Samuel Moon and Ajane Hill, just to those families, man. You hate to hear that kind of thing going on, with the young people. On a positive note, man, I just want to say thanks to, Black women, especially Women's History Month, doing it big in East Point, my hometown. Shout out to council member Ward B at large, Karen Renee, for inviting me to their big cleanup, Ward B cleanup. I was, out there. I wasn't cleaning up really, though, Talib. I was just taking pictures, get some time. I did pick up a couple of bottles. That's my hometown. So, I was picking up, man, they be doing, I'm telling you, man, they doing these little short, what do you call them? The shorty bottles? Good Lord.
Yeah, the shot bottles.
Yeah, the shot bottles. Cut it out, y'all. But shout out to council member Renee, and Ward B council member Dr. Josette Bailey held the cleanup, and Tonya Miller, who is the state representative, District 62, was there. Shout out to these towns, these areas of East Point, East Washington, River Park, Jefferson Park, Colonial Hills, villages of East Point, all those who came out, man, and just a great event, man. Definitely, man. Because you're over at College Park, man.
That's right. Frog Hollow. My mom used to live right there in Frog Hollow. So,
Yes, dog.
I'm a swap representative.
That's what I'm saying, man. That was my stomping ground. Any final thoughts, man, before we get up out of here, Tully?
No, man. Like I said, really, I just want to thank you for, having me on the show today. It's been a pleasure. I miss doing stuff like this, so I might just have to take a page from your playbook, Thomas.
Come on over, man. Don't do like Tyler. Don't do like Tyler Perry and Byron Allen. Just come on. Just come jump on, man. No, I'm just kidding, man. Do your thing. I mean, hey, I got to support my brother, man. And again,
indeed,
I call that era, man. That was like the golden era, dog. I mean,
it was the golden era. It was.
There's people who lived it.
That's the thing too, man. But that's the one thing I really want to say is that I'm pretty confident in the fact that it's time for a new renaissance, and we're right about there now, because as the squeeze comes on, things start to really develop and flourish, and our people are creative people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we use times like this to sharpen hopefully, I'm hoping that folks use times like this to sharpen the steel.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man. Let me give you applause for that, bro. Shout out to your folks in the studio too, man. I hear them back there. They've been talking like, trying to jump in. What up, DJ Wiz?
Yeah. There you go.
What up, Wiz? What it is, man? Appreciate y'all.
We got a couple of good things coming too, man. I don't know if anybody remembers the name Fresh Fest.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. Do your homework, fellas.
Hey man, keep us posted, man. Again,
man,
give it up for the one and only Talib Shabazz, man. Legendary Earwax Records, promotions, DJ extraordinaire, man. Thank you so much. And again, you can find us, man. All of our contact when we tape every Sunday at 6 p.m. All of our contact information is on our social media, and I'll make sure I have that on the podcast notes. Everything is at This Is the G Podcast. So you can look us up on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. On Twitter, we're at This Is the G Pod. But again, I'll have all that in the podcast notes. Man, appreciate you again, bro. Shout out to College Park, man, because, I'm in the country now. I'm out in the country.
Road, baby. What's happening? God be road.
Let me tell you, God be road. Oh. I got some stories about God be road, but I'll leave it at that. But but let me say this, man, because I'm in the country. I'm out here, the bridge, Henco.
Okay. Yeah.
But bottom line is, I COVID wise, you kind of stayed put for a long time. So going back into the city, man, after, you're out here with cows and horses, it's a different flavor. You go in and you come back. But, that's where the sounds are made, man. College Park is still, it's good to see College Park still thriving, East Point, all those folks who are doing it in Atlanta. Do it safe. I'm glad you're doing it in it because the studio business was under attack for a minute by knuckleheads who don't know how to behave in the studio. So I'm glad you guys are doing your thing and doing it the right way. So keep it up.
For sure.
Talib.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Nah, no problem, bro. No problem. And come back, man.
All right. Man, anytime, man. Anytime.
When y'all get the stuff ready, man, come on back. We'll be here.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Or anytime.
I
anytime.
got some stuff for you.
Yeah, anytime, man. Just come on back again. Thank you so much, Talib Shabazz.
And shouts out to Regia Shabazz as well.
Yes. Referred to as Gigi for reaching out, definitely, and finding you because I get what I get. See, you know what I get, Talib? Well, I have a third party agreement.
Right.
I cannot come on unless I receive. I'm like, get out of here. I knew you were in. Exactly. But anyway, Talib, man, take care of yourself, bro. See you again soon. And with that, y'all, episode 167 is in the can. And we are out of here, y'all. Peace. Power to the people. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B. The G Podcast is a production of the Castropolis Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.